4. The next 4 top-selling caravan brands in Australia after Jayco are all imports. Not 1, not 2, 4. MDC, Snowy River, Easy Trail, Austrac. 4 imported brands, outselling every single locally built manufacturer except Jayco. And while Australian production dropped 5% in 2025, imports rose 16% to 23,244 units. Let me put that in plain language. Imported caravans are now within a rounding error of matching total Australian domestic production. This is not coming. It's here, and the local industry is panicking. I spent time recently reading interviews with Australian caravan dealers and manufacturers, and one thing kept coming up. When journalists visited showrooms in Melbourne, representatives from locally built brands would rubbish Chinese build quality. Then when they were told the buyer's budget, they admitted, on the record, that they couldn't match the specs Chinese brands were offering at the same price, not even with demo or second-hand stock. That admission tells you everything. Today I'm naming 7 imported caravans and camper trailers that are genuinely beating Australian-made vans in 2026. Not on hype, not on price alone, on specific, measurable things that matter: construction method, value per dollar, market growth, service infrastructure, and long-term durability. I'm Liam. I'm 50. No sponsorships, no brand loyalty, nobody paying me a cent. I've recommended Australian-built vans like Kedron, Bush Tracker, Crusader, and Lotus throughout this channel, and I stand behind every one of those recommendations. But pretending imports aren't competitive in 2026 would be dishonest, and I don't do dishonest. Let's go. Number 7 is Easy Trail. And the reason Easy Trail makes this list is simple. No Australian manufacturer can match their pricing in the budget off-road hybrid segment. Full stop. Easy Trail has been in the Australian market for years. They've built a national dealer network, and their entry-level off-road hybrids start at prices that Australian manufacturers cannot touch without losing money on every unit. Are they the best-built hybrid on the market? No. Are they going to last 20 years on the Gibb River Road? Probably not. But for a young family on a budget who wants to get out camping on weekends and school holidays without spending 60 grand, Easy Trail fills a gap that the local industry has simply abandoned. When your choice is between an Easy Trail you can afford and an Australian brand you can't, the Easy Trail wins by default. And for a lot of Australian families right now, that's exactly the choice. Number 6 is Mars Campers. Mars has been operating in the Australian market for over a decade, and their hardwall camper trailers offer a spec level that Australian brands charge significantly more for. Independent suspension, lithium power, solar, hot water, full kitchen setups, and a hard roof over your head, at price points that undercut locally built equivalents by 30 to 50%. Mars isn't perfect. Build consistency has been flagged by some owners, and the after-sales experience varies by region. But 10-plus years of continuous market presence means they're not a fly-by-night, and the sheer number of Mars campers on Australian roads right now is proof that the product works for a lot of people. The Australian camper-trailer market has been slow to offer an affordable hardtop option, and Mars filled that gap before the locals even noticed it was there. Number 5 is Titan Caravans. Titan uses largely Chinese components, but finishes every van in a Queensland facility, and their Black Hawk off-road range uses full composite construction. Let me repeat that. Full composite. The same construction method that Crusader uses. The same method I've recommended as the single most important factor in long-term caravan durability. Available in an import at a price point well below most Australian-built composite vans. Independent reviewers, who've tested the Titan Blackhawk on real outback tracks have described it as just as capable as many so-called Australian-built off-road vans. When the construction method is the same and the price is 40% lower, the question isn't why would you buy an import? The question is why wouldn't you? Number 4 is Southern Cross Caravans. And this one gets interesting because Southern Cross is an Australian brand that now offers both locally manufactured and imported models. Their homegrown range uses Australian materials and Australian labor. Their imported range uses Chinese manufacturing to hit price points the local builds can't reach. The result is a brand that lets the buyer choose, pay more for Australian-made or pay less for Chinese-built, under the same badge and the same warranty. Southern Cross is honest about the split, and that honesty matters. They're not pretending the imports are something they're not. They're giving buyers a genuine choice, backed by a single Australian company that stands behind both lines. More local brands should have the guts to do this. Quick favor before I hit the top 3. These are the 3 imports that are doing the most damage to the local industry's market share, and if you're shopping right now, you need to know about them. If this is useful, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, and it helps get this in front of someone who deserves the full picture. On we go. Number 3 is New Gen Caravans. New Gen shares a Chinese factory with Snowy River, which means the bodies are built using the same automated composite panel manufacturing systems. Those completed composite bodies and chassis arrive in Melbourne, where final assembly, fitting of appliances and suspension, and certification to Australian standards all happen in the same Victorian facility as Snowy River and Regent. Full composite construction, no timber frame, no hidden rot risk. Victorian final assembly with Australian quality checks. And pricing that undercuts most locally built composite vans by a significant margin. New Gen doesn't get the headlines that Snowy River does, but the product comes from the same manufacturing DNA. And for a buyer who wants composite construction without paying Crusader or Lotus prices, New Gen is a legitimate option. Number 2 is MDC. Market Direct Campers. 20 years in the Australian market. 20 years. That is longer than most locally built brands have existed. MDC holds RV Map accreditation and ISO 9001 quality certification, which are industry-compliant standards that many Australian manufacturers don't bother pursuing. They operate service centers, a dedicated warranty team, and a parts network across the country. Their CEO has compared MDC's approach to Kia, introducing a 7-year warranty when Korean cars were still on the nose, and the comparison is apt. They invested in certification and infrastructure specifically to overcome the stigma of being an import, and it worked. MDC is the largest import brand by volume and consistently among the top 4 best-selling caravan brands in Australia overall. Are they perfect? No. Water leaks remain their most common complaint, and build consistency is a documented weakness that varies unit to unit. But a company that has survived 20 years in this market, invested in accreditation that most local brands haven't, and continued to grow through a correction that has killed 9 manufacturers, has earned its position. The local industry can sneer all it wants. MDC has outlasted dozens of Australian brands that claim to be better. Longevity is the ultimate quality test, and MDC is passing it. And number 1, the imported caravan that is doing more damage to the Australian-made market than any other single brand, is Snowy River. Snowy River caravans have their bodies constructed in China using automated manufacturing systems that most Australian factories simply cannot afford. Robotic panel cutting, precision adhesive application, and consistent composite layup that eliminates the human error inconsistencies you get on a manual production line. Those bodies are then shipped to a Victorian facility shared with sister brand Regent, where chassis assembly, finishing, and certification happen under Australian oversight. The result is a full composite caravan with no timber-framed walls, sharp pricing, and equipment levels that compare favorably with locally made vans costing 30 to 50% more. Independent reviewers have described Snowy River as the most popular full-size Chinese-built caravan in Australia, and the sales data confirms it. They are now the second most searched caravan brand in the country, behind Jayco. Since launching in 2015, barely 11 years ago, they've gone from nothing to outselling almost every local manufacturer, except the industry giant. And here is the part that local dealers really hate. Snowy River's automated composite construction is, from a structural longevity standpoint, objectively superior to the aluminium-clad timber frame construction that many Australian manufacturers still use. Composite panels don't absorb moisture. They don't rot. They don't delaminate. A Snowy River van built today will have drier, sounder walls in 20 years than an Australian-made timber frame van bought on the same day. That is not opinion. That is physics. The Australian brands that build in composite, Crusader, Retreat, and a handful of others, are still ahead on overall quality, finish, and reputation. But the gap is narrowing, and the price gap between them and Snowy River is not narrowing at all. So the recap. 7 imports beating Australian-made vans in 2026. Easy Trail on price. Mars on camper trailer value. Titan on composite off-road capability. Southern Cross on honest hybrid manufacturing. New Gin on factory-shared composite quality. MDC on longevity and service infrastructure. And Snowy River on construction method, consistency, and market momentum. My honest takeaway, and this one might sting, is this. The Australian caravan industry's biggest threat is not Chinese imports, it's complacency. For years, local manufacturers charged premium prices for construction methods that haven't kept up with what automated factories overseas are now producing. They relied on patriotism and parochialism to justify the price gap instead of closing it with better engineering. And the market has called their bluff. 9 local brands have collapsed in 18 months. Imports are up 16%. The buyers have voted with their wallets, and the wallets are going offshore. The brands that will survive this correction are the ones that build in composite, invest in quality systems, and compete on product rather than flag waving. Crusader is doing it, Kedron is doing it, Bush Tracker is doing it, Lotus is doing it. These are magnificent manufacturers, and they deserve every dollar they earn. But the brands that are still building on timber frames, still charging premium prices, and still telling customers that Australian-made automatically means better, they're the ones losing market share, and they're the ones who should be worried. Do your homework. Judge the product, not the passport, and buy the builder, not the badge. I'll see you in the next one. Check the construction before you check the country. This content reflects the presenter's honest opinions based on publicly available information, including Caravan Industry Association of Australia data, independent product reviews, published industry journalism, market share data, and first-hand workshop experience at the time of recording. Individual experiences may vary. Always conduct independent research and seek professional advice before making any purchasing decision.